It's time for Lefties Losing It, and we've got a treat for you. The mad, bad, chronically sad Joy Reid was back on TV. No, not hosting her own show like she did for many years on MSNBC, the mental asylum masquerading as a news network. No, Joy was on Piers Morgan's show and it didn't go well.
I think you were fired because your show just got increasingly unpopular. It happens all the time in TV. That's why you got let go. Why play the race card?
First of all, I love the fact that your play the race card is your version of the race card. You literally are so fixated on trying to racialize conversations with me, Piers, that I find it actually quite charming.
You racialize more conversations in your tenure at MSNBC than any host in history.
All right, Mark. All right, Piers.
And of course, after being accused of playing the race card, Joy went about proving that's all she knows how to do.
And it is so interesting to me that you yourself, as a white European, find that when people of color talk about race, that you believe is racializing conversations. But when people like you fixate on, well, Barack Obama was a black president, why don't you object to that? That is racializing a conversation about the former president of the United States. But you can't put your, and I'm sure you find that charming and funny.
I find it hilarious because you're the one. You're the one who said Donald Trump.
You and your friend Donald Trump.
You said Donald Trump is a white fascist.
Are so, he is a, well, I agree with Mark
when Obama did the same thing,
last time I checked,
I'm not allowed to mention his skin colour.
No, Piers, you're not allowed to mention Obama's skin colour, even when it's Joy who introduced race into the debate, because that's all a race baiter knows how to do. Here, Joy proves she doesn't actually care about the issue. She just cares about attacking Trump.
Do you know how many people Barack Obama deported in 8 years?
I'm sure you're going to tell me.
Well, why don't you guess?
I don't know and don't care.
Well, hang on. You don't know and you don't care. You've just given me...
Because it's not the issue. You're trying to make the issue the southern border.
Joy. You've just given me... Joy.
Joy. The point is...
Joy, given that you're obviously all over every detail of the Trump deportation policy and given you were on the airwaves in America on a daily basis through Obama's tenure, how many people did he deport in 8 years? I
do not know. You'll tell me, I'm sure.
Have a guess.
But it's probably more than 1 million people. I'm quite certain.
Have a guess.
Because I think each 2 million.
Right, it was 3 million.
Okay. And your point being what?
Your point being what? The point being you're an unprincipled hypocrite, Joy. I think that was Pierce's point. Now to another lefty, a far more sane one than Joy. Bill Maher has had a realisation. Turns out tariffs didn't tank the economy or the share market. They didn't cause a recession. In fact, they're doing precisely what Donald Trump said they would do.
I remember along with probably most people, was saying at the beginning, oh, you know, by the 4th of July, somebody had to think how the country was, the economy was going to be tanked by then. And I was kind of like, well, that seems right to me. But that didn't happen. Now, it could happen tomorrow. I'm just saying that's reality. So let's work first from the reality of that, not from I just hate Donald Trump. Because that's boring and doesn't get us anywhere and leads you to dishonesty. Because the truth is, I don't know what his strategy is, but look, the stock market is at record highs. I know not everybody lives by the stock market, but I also drive around. I don't see a country in a depression at all.
Oh, Bill, if you want to know what Donald Trump's tariff strategy is, then just listen to what he's been saying for decades. He's spelled it out so many times. But sadly, despite Bill being much saner than the average lefty, he does still exist in somewhat of an echo chamber. Remember when Megyn Kelly schooled him over and over again? Maher was ignorant of the most basic facts like this.
Hillary Clinton, of course, is the original election denier. I'm sure you voted for her in 2016.
Well, she's not an election denier.
She absolutely was the OG election denier.
First of all, she came out before the sun had risen to concede the election to Trump.
And then spent the next 4 years saying he was illegitimate. He was an illegitimate president.
Okay, well, first of all, she didn't say he was an illegitimate.
Yes, she did.
You tell me exactly what she said.
She said those exact words repeatedly.
I believe he knows he's an illegitimate president.
You can run the best campaign, you can even become the nominee, and you can have the election stolen from you.
Now, this next clip is delicious. Here is Steve Bannon calling out the activist journalists of PBS on PBS.
And the rhetoric about the judge, because a lot of lawyers say, you know, all of the rhetoric, calling for impeachment, the radical left lunatic, that this rhetoric, it shouldn't, that's not the type of thing the president should say. He should appeal. He should abide by the court ruling and not.
Listen, by the way, was there any complaint from PBS or was there any complaint by the Democrats on the rhetoric used against the judges when the Roe v. Wade decision came out and they had to have police protection at their houses? I don't remember anything about the rhetoric being too high. You guys are so phony on the face of it. This is why we're defeating the left. The American people, as they see this, they go, these guys are a bunch of lying scumbags, which you are, a bunch of lying scumbags. You try to terrorize Supreme Court justices over a decision that didn't go your way.
I told you it was delicious. And talking about scumbags, here is Democrat Congresswoman Rita Tlaib. This might be a new low for the squad.
Palestinian people, this is all for you.
Now, here's some news sure to make the average CNN viewer extra sad. Take it away, Harry.
The bottom line is this. Despite everything that's going on in the world right now, Republicans are more trusted on Democrats when it comes to foreign policy and the world at large.
And the figures show the American people, despite the relentless media campaign against the Trump administration and its foreign policy decisions, well, the American people have more faith in Trump and the GOP than the Democrats.
When it comes to the issue of foreign policy, again, what you see is, in the American voters' minds, Democrats simply put can't hack it. More voters trust Republicans on foreign policy, very much like they did back during the 2024 campaign.
What about the strikes on Iran? Because while they were being contemplated, they were not universally popular.
No, they were not universally popular. And in the immediate aftermath, they were not universally popular. Look at this. Net approval rating, U.S. airstrikes on Iran. In late June, the net approval rating, look at that, -8 points underwater. But as the American people learned more and more about it, look at this, a 10-point rise. Now it's in the positive. The American people like the move that Donald Trump put on Iran, the U.S. airstrikes in Iran.
Let's bring in Sky News contributor Kosha Gator. Kosha, the data on the airstrikes is particularly interesting because CNN was at the forefront of running that anonymous, low-level conjecture that the airstrikes didn't actually do much damage, but that narrative seems to have not had long-lasting impact.
Indeed. I think ultimately polling does reflect reality. It may be delayed because it's always swimming against the current of the mainstream media narrative engineering. Sometimes it may be delayed by years or even decades, sadly and frustratingly, but eventually truth does tend to prevail. And that one, it was not only a criticism of Trump, which was the genesis of why they were putting that out there, but it was also a criticism of American military might, the technological capability. And that, I don't think it sits very well with the American public because just the nature of those bunker-busting bombs, it's technology nobody else has in the world. The visuals of how they're like rockets that go deep into the ground was quite amazing. And it just wasn't going to fly, I think, the way they were constructing that narrative. The polling also probably improved because it was a controversial move. Politically, in terms of foreign policy, that still remains about are we getting sucked into another forever war? But since we didn't, it was sort of an in and out. I think those concerns have been assuaged as well.
I think that had a lot to do with it as well. I think a lot of people were very reluctant about America getting involved in another Middle Eastern conflict to that extent and were fearful this was going to be a war. When it was just a one-off strike, then I think they relaxed somewhat. Now, this is rather wonderful footage. Watch here as Keir Starmer squirms like the ineffectual faux leader that he is as Donald Trump talks about Europe's illegal immigration crisis and the rise in crime.
Europe is a much different place than it was just 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And they've got to get their act together. If they don't, you're not going to have Europe anymore as you know it, and you can't do that. This is a magnificent part of the world, and you cannot ruin it. You cannot let people come in here illegally And what happens is there'll be murderers, there'll be drug dealers, there'll be all sorts of things that other countries don't want. And they send them to you and they send them to us, and you've got to stop them.
And the squirming did not stop there. Starmer was then asked about whether he's envious of Trump's stellar record in resolving the illegal immigration crisis in the US.
The president makes it look easy dealing with illegal migration. You must be envious of his record in such a short period of time.
Well, I think we've been discussing irregular, illegal migration is a huge issue in both of our countries. In the United Kingdom, it is a real cause for concern, and that's why we must bear down on it in all its aspects, upstream, across Europe, where a lot of ours comes through northern France, across the Channel.
Kosher, Trump's really shown these leaders that the illegal immigration crisis can be solved. It is not an issue that's too big to have an answer. You just have to have the will and the policies to make it happen. And he's did it in such quick time. And I think that's what's shocked so many people.
That line in his State of the Union address, or joint address that he gave just weeks into his presidency, where he said, we heard for years that you needed more legislation or comprehensive immigration reform, and it turns out all you needed was a new president. Yeah. That's going to go down in the history books because he's done it. As you say, in less than 100 days, border crossings are virtually zero. And we all know that immigration has been really a debacle for Western countries over the last half century. He's laying that bare. He's showing that it can be turned around, and it's just making the rest of the world leaders look totally impotent and feckless that they're not able to do this. Their populations are crying out for it. They don't want any more of it, and he can just sit there now and take a victory lap and really show them up, as he should.
Well, the solution seems to be from some of these countries, including in the UK, to crack down on free speech. And that was another topic for discussion, an issue that we know Trump cares passionately about. Let's have a look at what's happening in the UK. They've got a crackdown on people who want to voice their concerns about illegal immigration. Anti-migrant posts on social media are going to be monitored by an elite police squad. And yet we've got Keir Starmer claiming that free speech is very important to him and it exists in the UK.
We discussed the importance of free speech today.
Well, free speech is very important. I don't know if you're referring to any place in particular. Perhaps they are, but
we've had free speech for a very, very long time here, so we're very proud about that.
Kosher claims they have free speech in the UK, but this latest crackdown on free speech is coming as protests outside asylum hotels have spread across the country. And we've got people right now locked up for some of them lengthy terms, around 3 years, for things they've posted in opposition to immigration.
It's outrageous. Months, even up to 3 years, as you say. One is a 55-year-old mother who was locked up. So these are not violent offenders. And this whole concept of hate speech or bigoted speech leading to these task forces for immigration. They also did it for COVID in 2020, 2021. They had a secret sort of investigative unit that was looking to combat disinformation around various COVID measures that potentially could lead to prosecutions or arrests, and I think did in some cases. So Keir Starmer is right in that there is a long history of free speech in the UK, going all the way back to the Magna Carta in 1215. That's where it all germinated out of. That's what makes it even more shameful and sad that they're doing this. It has to be defended. And this issue is only going to brew. It's headed towards a collision course because in addition to arresting their own citizens like they have, they're doing things like putting these huge fines against American big tech companies who are not without sin, those big tech players. However, they're appealing all of them, and these other governments coming in and trying to find 6, 8, 10% of global revenues is going to come into Trump trade deals and other negotiations as well. So this fight is just getting started.
It's crazy. I've been seeing screen grabs that people have posted from the UK where just posts about immigration are completely blanked out. You can see them elsewhere in the world, but you can't see them in the UK. And we've got people who have been accused of incitement via their tweets, serving longer jail terms, some of them, than people involved in the grooming gang scandal. I mean, it's just absolutely crazy. We've got more squirming from the UK Prime Minister here. Trump's asked about whether he's going to go to London, and he can't help mentioning Sadiq Khan, the mayor, and how terrible he is.
You visit London during the state visit?
I will. I'm not a fan of your mayor.
Why not?
I think he's done a terrible job, the mayor of London. But the nasty person, I think he's done. I think he's a friend of mine, right? No, I think he's done a terrible job. But I would certainly visit London. Yeah.
I love how Trump just ignored what Keir Starmer said there and just reiterated, yes, Sadiq Khan is doing a terrible job. He's a nasty person.
It's so funny because he says he's doing a terrible job, which is true if you want to defend that. Crime has been up, basically knife crime, violent crime, sexual assault. They call it something like there's a rape reported per hour now in London, even shoplifting and all these things. And not all of that is at his feet. There are other upstream reasons for it, but that's not a good record, even though it does bear saying that he's the only mayor who's been re-elected 3 times. So he does keep getting re-elected despite that.
That is true.
But I love how Trump added that extra personal layer. He's doing a terrible job as mayor and he's nasty. And that's when Keir Starmer felt the need to come in and defend him, and he just swatted it away. Nope, he's doing a bad job.
Ignored it, just kept talking. Now, a warning to our viewers, this next story does have some distressing content. It's a horrible story. What looks like race-based violence from Cincinnati received scant coverage until the vice president talked about them. The scenes are horrific, but when I went to Google yesterday looking for news coverage, the mainstream media were missing in action. Indeed, the first news story that popped up was about Ice Cube's surprise appearance at the Cincinnati Music Festival. But that has all changed now because the vice president was asked about this issue and he had this to say.
What I saw is a mob of lawless thugs beating up on an innocent person, and it's disgusting. And I hope every single one of those people who engage in violence is prosecuted to the full extent of the law. And they will be. They will be so long as law enforcement in the state of Ohio takes their job seriously. I know Dave Yost cares a lot about these things. I don't know the full context. I don't know how the fight started. But the one part that I saw that was really gruesome is you had a grown man who sucker punched a middle-aged woman. And where I come from, at least, when you have a grown man who sucker punches a middle-aged woman, that person ought to go to jail for a very long time. And frankly, he's lucky there weren't some better people around because they would have handled it themselves. But if they're not going to handle it, the cops in Cincinnati, the law enforcement, you've got to prosecute people. We've had way too much lawlessness on the streets of great American cities.
We are now seeing some news coverage on this story, but Koshar can guarantee if the races of the victims were reversed, if the perpetrators were mainly white and the victims were black, let's face it, this would be front page on most newspapers across America, would be leading the news service. But it's taken the vice president's intervention to actually put this even in the news cycle.
The media, thankfully, is just getting more and more irrelevant, and there are these alternatives with independent media, and it's going viral online, as you said. But it is so frustrating because they don't cover it, they won't cover it. There are some rumors and rumblings that there was some kind of racial slur uttered. There's no evidence or reportable specificity around that. But if that emerges, that that's what instigated this, it doesn't justify obviously being beaten down like that, then I suspect the media will cover it because it'll give them a little bit of a motivation that they'll zero in on. But it is frustrating. I think 2 things will force them to, either that, high-profile people like the vice president speaking out about it, and then prosecutions, if they happen. Harmeet Dillon, who's the head of the civil rights group under Pam Bondi, under this administration, came out with a statement that federal statutes protect all Americans, regardless of color, and we will be watching the Cincinnati prosecutors closely to make sure that they bring charges against these people. That's what everybody's waiting to see.
Absolutely, and yeah, she's a very good operator indeed. Vivek Ramaswamy has weighed in as well. He's running to be the governor of Ohio, and he posted this earlier today. He said he spoke to Holly, that's the woman who was knocked out, and she's a single working mum who went to a friend's birthday party. It's unconscionable that there were no police present in the area in Cincinnati on Friday night, or even an ambulance to take her to the hospital. Hardworking Americans shouldn't have to worry for their safety when they have a good time in our cities. Holly said not a single local or state official had yet reached out as of earlier this afternoon, other than one police detective. Leftists like to lecture about systematic injustice while thugs turn out cities into war zones. I'm done with their excuses. As governor, I'll make sure they'll be behind bars, not running wild. Our cops will have the green light to restore order. No apologies. This is a strong statement, and JD Vance also made a statement about making great American cities safe again.
The local authorities in these big cities have allowed lawlessness to run wild. We have got to make great American cities safe again for families and children. If you want to take your wife or your children out for a meal, you shouldn't be worried about street violence. And the only way to destroy that street violence is to take the thugs who engage in that violence and throw their asses in prison.
And I tell you, this could be the issue that turns those big cities red, because the big cities are almost all blue.
Yes.
But crime is just running rampant, and people are sick of it, surely.
Yes, you see little sparks of that. So Ohio as a state has turned quite red and has gone to Trump by 10 points in every election, actually, that he's run in 3 times. But you're right, these cities are not. The mayor, the vice mayor of Cincinnati came out with a statement trying to water it down and saying, oh, this was just an adult fight, is how she couched it, because they don't want to admit how derelict they are in their duty.
Right. I mean, I've seen the full footage that's available online.
It's disgusting.
And this wasn't a fight. This was a full-blown gang attack. 2 helpless people bashed. Almost a miracle they're alive. And
Absolutely.
then the second video is a man by himself who is just horrifically bashed.
They're trying to water it down, but the only thing that'll make a difference is prosecutions, handcuffs, and that is the deterrence. And we keep talking about Bukele and El Salvador and how he has done that by having very, very strong consequences for criminality. We need to bring that back, especially after BLM. The system has sent a very bad message that you can do these kinds of things and get away with it, especially if you're from certain groups.
Yeah.
And that has to be turned around.
Welcome back. Now, there was a shocking mass shooting in New York City today that left 4 innocent people dead, including a police officer. But before the assailant was named, we had media outlets like CNN trying to guess the race of the gunman, desperate to know how white he was, even though the picture released showed he was not.
They do not know who he is. They know he is a male, possibly white. He's wearing sunglasses. He appears to have a mustache. And that picture has been distributed to every police officer in New York City.
Yes, the colour of the 27-year-old mass shooter, identified by sources as Shane Tamara, was somehow hugely relevant to CNN. Joining me now is a comedian and host of Primetime with Alex Stein on Blaze TV. Alex, the media continue to disgrace themselves. Just when you think they can't sink any lower, they go and surprise you.
Well, I'm not surprised whatsoever. I mean, if you look at the media and you look at their track record, once again, I'm not surprised they wanted this shooter to be white. And the fact that he's not, I'm guessing that this whole entire event is probably going to get memory hold. And we'll probably not hear that much about it in the future, believe it or not, because there's certain narratives that they want to protect. So you look at CNN, they are the most dishonest media company that is in existence currently. So for them to accuse a shooter of being white when you can clearly see that he's not white, I'm actually not surprised whatsoever.
Now let's discuss a far more frivolous issue. Tell me about the outrage from the left, Alex, over these Sydney Sweeney ads. She's advertising jeans, but some are seeing and hearing racist Nazi dog whistles in these ads. Tell me why.
I mean, Rita, once again, why does everything have to be through the lens of a Nazi doing it? You know, she's a beautiful blonde woman, but they want to try to paint her as being a Nazi. And that's where it loses, you know, the meaning of what a Nazi and how evil a Nazi truly is when you accuse a beautiful woman like Sydney Sweeney for doing a jean ad as being a Nazi. So that's what's wrong with the media, and that's what's wrong with, you know, most people. If she was a 400-pound Lizzo impersonator, they would be cheering her on. But the fact that she's actually a beautiful woman and, you know, more than likely probably a white beautiful woman, you know, dare I say, that's why the backlash and that's why these Nazi accusations exist, just because she's beautiful, and they don't like that. They want ugly models in this model.
Yeah, well, because they're saying it's a play on words. The ad says Sydney Sweeney has great genes, and they're thinking about genes with a G. But, you know, even if they were playing up those words, if they ran that ad with Beyonce or some other person of colour and had exactly the same line, no one would be having a meltdown about it. It's just really is quite bizarre. Now, let's go to California, and the lawlessness there is out of control. The shoplifting is out of control. We've now even got cookies under lock and key.
Look at this. Somebody come look at this. Look at this. Somebody come and look at this. Look at this.
Alex, we're used to seeing high-cost items under lock and key, but cookies and donuts now?
Well, Rita, I actually looked into this, and this is actually very common that they have to lock up the cookies, the ice cream, because when people are withdrawing from drugs, they're craving sweets. So that's why they have to do this. I'm not even kidding. That's why I was just reading it, and that is one of the main reasons. You know, they've always locked up deodorant and, you know, items that people could steal and resell. But now, because of all the people withdrawing from drugs, they have to lock up the sweets because people literally crave them. And it's really sad. So something that looks silly like that, it's pretty evil, the reason that they have to do that.
Well, it's also evident in New York. I've seen toothpaste and toothbrushes, all sorts of things under lock and key there. Now let's check in on the fans of Stephen Colbert. This is in New York, holding a protest, and it was a rather sad little affair. There was about, 20 people there, Alex. They want him reinstated, but if this is the support they're getting, it ain't going to happen.
Well, no, I mean, his average audience age is 68 years old, and that was literally more people than watch his show on TV every night. So, I mean, Stephen Colbert, his show's going to get canceled. I wish CBS would just pull the Band-Aid off right now, because they're going to let this guy have a lot of runway to just demonize President Trump and just make bad content. So I want to see Stephen Colbert go on his own, because in this modern era, if he is funny, if he truly deserves to be at that spot, he can do it independently and still be successful. So, you know, the proof is in the pudding. We'll see how successful he is after CBS.
I don't know how much longer they can keep this going, because he's not due to be off air till 2026. And he seems to be spending his remaining time on air just having a massive tantrum, bagging his own network. So I wonder how much longer they're going to be paying this enormous salary to him, plus his 200 staff, the fact that the show's losing around 40-50 million a year just to have their own network bagged. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if they get rid of him a bit sooner than they were anticipating. Alex Stein, thank you so much for your time tonight.